Welcome back. In the last episodes, we went over refactoring our project and registering a block and item in our ModLoader specific projects. What I've done is move this to a traditional approach, which is very similar to Copinjo's tutorial, where we are separating these into mod items and mod blocks classes respectively. And this is duplicated logic for each mod loader, which is something we want to avoid going forward. So we're going to look at a couple different options to achieve this. One of those will be mimicking Botania's approach with no extra dependencies. This is just using some consumer logic, which you can read the documentation on, consumers from Java specifically, and by consumers. We'll be using those in common and then calling back to that code from ModLoader specific entry points to register our game objects. We're also going to review RegistrationUtils, which is a soft dependency which shadows itself into our project. We'll be able to call some code that you might not see in our directory here, but it is shadowed in at compile time. Bookshelf is slightly different in that we create a class that implements iContentProvider and then use a service loader to actually register our content or game objects. You should read up on service loaders as they are used rather extensively for these platform helpers, and you can make your own services. And at the end, I will show you how to move your project to Architectury, which is very similar to multi-loader template that we used as a base, but it provides a ton of extra functionality. Let's review what's happening during registration traditionally in Forge. We have a modBlocks class that we are calling a register method in, and as we call that class, all of our static fields are loaded. So our deferred register is loaded, and our block is registered to that deferred register, and then our deferred register is registered to the event bus. Looking at Fabric, our common mod initializer is calling the register method in modBlocks. So our static fields are defined, which is automatically registering to Minecraft's built-in registry. If you go to Botania's page on CurseForge or Modrent, we can get a link to their source code, and we can review their license. Since we are going to be copying a part of their code base, this falls under this portion of the license. And so we need to give attribution on the portions that we are copying. So let's review how they are registering game objects through Forge first. In Botania's Forge common initializer, we see their constructor method here, calling to registry init, which is a private void method. And here, they are getting their mod event bus through their mod loading context. And they are binding everything in Botania blocks to Minecraft's internal block registry. We can find the signature of the method being used for register blocks here. And we see it's a by consumer of block and resource location. Navigate back to their bind method. We'll copy this portion, our Forge common initializer. We're going to import everything we can. Registry from Minecraft, resource key from Minecraft, resource location from Minecraft, by consumer from Java, consumer from Java, register event from Forge. This version of getting the mod event bus is deprecated, so what we're going to do is widen the axis of our mod event bus. So we'll do public static I event bus, and then as soon as we can in our mod constructor, we're going to set that from our context. We're going to replace this snippet here with event bus. NeoForge is very similar to Forge, so let's go ahead and copy this over here. Register event from NeoForge instead. And then we need to widen the axis. And set it. And now this should work as intended. Botania does slightly modify their binding method in Fabric, but we're going to copy Forge's bind method and just tweak it slightly. We'll comment out the unneeded code and change this to just use a registry directly instead of the resource key. We'll do source.accept, and this is very similar to this line here. We'll do We can actually just do registry.register now. Pass in the registry from the method, or resource location, and then the underlying object. We'll make sure to give proper attribution to Botania. What we're going to do now is move the definitions of our blocks and items from the ModLoader specific projects to the common project. I'll start with blocks. So we'll do mod blocks. And we need to match the signature, or we need to have a method in this class that matches the signature that we are using in each of these entry points bind methods. So we need a method that consumes a by consumer. So we'll do public static void register by consumer. And in this class, mod blocks, we are going to be consuming block instances, block from Minecraft that is. And those are paired to resource locations, which are basically identifiers for your game objects. So what we could do is go ahead and do consumer.accept and then switch these around real quick. We want to be able to access this as a field in this class. So we can do public static final block my cool block is equal to this. So now we can reference this in items if we wanted to. Do that now under registry, a new class, mod items. We need to again match the signature, but this time we're going to use item for the type. So public static void register. We're consuming a by consumer of item paired to resource location. So just like in mod blocks, you would probably want this accessible as a field. So what we're going to do is make a new myCoolBlock field up here. And this is an item this time though. So now we can access that as a public field. We have these, the definitions of the blocks and items in common now. So effectively, we should be able to remove these. We just need to make sure that we are now using these mod blocks and mod items in our mod loader specific entry points, along with our bind method. We're going to delete registry under fabric, and we automatically get an error because now it's looking at mod blocks from registry in our common project. So we're not calling the register method like this. This is not how we're going to do it. We are actually going to bind built-in registries block and then use the method reference mod blocks register. So we are now consuming a by consumer using the register method, and that by consumer accepts our blocks. We'll do the same thing for item. We can duplicate that line, change this to item, and change this to mod items. Now we want to make sure we're doing the same thing in our other projects. We're going to delete registry under Forge and delete registry under NeoForge. We're getting an error here, so we'll remove this, and we're going to do a similar signature, but instead we're doing registries instead of built-in registries. But we're still able to do mod blocks register as a method reference. We can duplicate that again, do item, and change this to mod items. And then in NeoForge, we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing, because they are also using resource keys of a registry instead of just the underlying registry. And just for the sake of the demonstration, in NeoForge, we still see defined blocks, registering blocks, items, and we can still give ourselves the block as a block item and place the actual block into the world. For this next part, we're going to be implementing RegistrationUtils. This has a small caveat that only Fabric and NeoForge mod loaders are supported. We do not have support for Forge. So what we're going to do is remove the Forge project from being compiled, which is as simple as commenting out or removing this line completely. I'm going to add the registration utils plugin, and we can look at newer versions if we need to. This is the latest version that we need for 1.21 though, which is 1.21.0-0.2.2. Okay, so this is fine. And make sure to refer back to the documentation if you need to for this. We want to match our fully qualified namespace. So this should actually be io.github.your username, my cool mod. This should be all we really need to do to get registration utils into our project. And then we'll implement registration using this in one moment. So now we can reduce more code duplication by going here to each of our entry points. We're going to remove the things that we copied from Botania, and we're going to finally move all of that logic into common. So we don't need this method signature anymore, but we do still want a public static void method. So I'm just going to remove this and remove this consumer accept. Remove, I'll leave the login. For registration utils, like I said before, some code is shadowed into your project and is available to you via that registration thing that you might have saw a second ago. It'll be in this. So how do we use it though? Well, we can just start typing. We're going to create something that's basically like Forge's deferred register. So this is a registration provider. And like you see, this is under our namespace, under registration, even though we don't actually have that. You don't see it here. This will be of type block. Call it box, just like we did in Neoforge. This would be registration provider.get registries.block, and put this under our namespace. Very similar to Forge's approach. We also need to wrap this as a registry object, which is also under our namespace. This would be of block. This is kind of similar to Neoforge's approach, where this is the underlying type of the registry, and this can match the actual type here of my cool block. We also need to wrap this code here. And this is very similar to Forge's approach. We're going to do blocks.register and then give it a string and make this a supplier. And this will be my cool block. What we need to do now is actually call this register method. We need to make sure the mod blocks class is loaded at some point during mod initialization. Registration utils will handle the rest of it since we've registered to a registration provider. So what we're going to do is in our common class, all the way down here, we'll do modblocks.register. We're going to go to items and do a very similar thing. We can remove this consumer call and get rid of this here. We need to create a registration provider of type item, call it items. We'll do .get registries item, put it under our namespace. We need to wrap this as a registry object, just like we did before. And this type can match the exact type that it is. And then we wrap this, and this will be items.register string, make it a supplier, maybe. Yeah, we can just do this .getPath. So instead of trying to get the resource location and then the underlying name from Minecraft's built-in registry, we're actually using the registry object's built-in getID, and this is being assigned as we are obviously as we've added that here, as that name is added here. We should be able to give at p my cool mod, my cool block. It's a block item, and we can place the block into the world. Now we're moving on to Bookshelf, which is a fully featured library mod for Minecraft. It has a lot more than what we're focusing on, but all we're focusing on right now is registering game objects. You can reference these mods that were made with Bookshelf to get a general understanding of how to implement it into your project. Alright, so what we've done is remove the registration utils import logic. In multi-letter common, we've added the Terraformers Maven, which is an alternative for some things located in Blame Jared's Maven. In common, we are getting the common artifact for bookshelf, in Fabric the Fabric bookshelf, and then in Neoforge the Neoforge bookshelf. So to actually use this in our project, we are going to compact mod blocks and mod items into one class called mod content. This is going to implement iContent provider. And what we want to do is register blocks and register items. And you can also look at everything else that is provided by Bookshelf. The namespace is going to be our mod ID. We're going to do constants.mod ID. Let's look at how Botany Pots is registering different blocks and items. In their common project, we're going to find their implementation of the content provider, which will be Botany Pots content, implementing iContent provider. And under register blocks, we see they are calling create pots on the registry. We go to create pots. We see this is calling register pot using the registry. And register pot is adding a block to the registry with an assigned resource location. So there's no reason to call it a super, as super has no implementation. So what we can do is registry.add. And we see that there are two overloads. One takes a string path and one takes a full resource location. If we look at these overloads, specifically for string path, it creates a namespace and path from the owner that we're assigning, which is from constants namespace. So we can just do myCoolBlock, new myCoolBlock. The registration method for Bookshelf, what they're doing is injecting the blocks that you're registering into a method in the blocks class. So if you attempt to call blocks early, the code injection is fired, and thus your blocks will not be registered, as that injection is already fired before that. So we can't copy block behavior here either. We can't just say block behavior.properties.copy blocks.wool. This would be invalid and lead to a crash, as we can't reference blocks. There is that caveat. You will be able to organize this code better if you want, but I want to show you how we can register and use this block again to register an item of a block item. I'm just going to call it block for brevity right now. We'll reuse that here. And then we'll do registry add here. And we see the register item registry actually has an add block method. And this is using the internal namespace in a very similar way that we did to the traditional Fabric registration. And then it's creating a new block item in the same way that we would be doing it, unless you wanted some more custom implementation. So we're simply just going to do block here. I'll go ahead and rename this Michael Block. So we're almost finished. Now we need to add a service loader in our common project to actually use our content provider. Under resources, we'll create a new directory, meta-inf, and then a new directory under that, services. And we'll create a new file. And the naming of this is very specific. net.darkhacks.bookshelf.common.api registry iContent provider. We need to make sure we give this the exact namespace, fully qualified namespace, I mean, of mod content. So that will be, well, it auto completes for me. So we'll actually just put that right in there. Let's go ahead and get rid of mod blocks and mod items here, as we are not using RegistrationUtils anymore. And in our common class, we can get rid of the calls to that. Creating a new creative peaceful superplot. And we should be able to /give ourselves our block, which is a block item, and place our block into the world. All right, for the final part of our project, we are transitioning to use Architectury API And there are plenty of amazing tutorials out for Architectury already. So if you have any knowledge of it and you just want to say, yeah, I'll go ahead and use Architectury, I'm not going to be using that in this project. I'm just going to show you the bare bones, very basics. So please refer to somebody else's tutorials for Architectury. Want to make sure all of this matches the mod we've already created. Put this on 1.21.1. They don't have support for Forge either on 1.21.1, so we're just doing Fabric and NeoForge. You can extract the contents of the file however you would like. You can see this will be the new base of our project. So I like to open my project in File Explorer for this part. We're going to close IntelliJ for now and reopen it in a moment. Be very careful in what you're deleting here. Selecting .gradle, .idea, build source, deleting those. Press yes. Under common, deleting build. Fabric, we're deleting every folder except for source. Forge, we could actually fully delete Forge because we're not using it right now. NeoForge, build, and run, we're going to delete those. And actually, I will go ahead and delete Forge just for the sake of this portion of the tutorial. All right, so we have those deleted. And what we're going to do now is select all of this, Control-C to copy, make sure we're copying everything. You can even right-click and click copy just to make sure. We're going to click in this here. We're going to click in this folder here for our demo, and we're going to paste. Make sure to replace files. Reopen our project. All right, so if you did everything right, you should have build successful. We can go to settings.gradle real quick and update this to get rid of this weird thing here. Let's open up all of our projects to make sure there's no weird code or anything going on from us copying and moving things over. So some things look a little weird, a little bit out of place. We have common class and example mod. And then in the mod loader specifics, we have example mod and example mod fabric, and these are under the fabric namespaces. A little bit strange, but we will fix this up. We can fully get rid of our original example mod classes. Get rid of common class too. Let's replace this usage to use our constants mod ID instead. You will see the configurations for the mixin files have changed slightly. We're going to completely remove the platform helpers as well as these service configuration files. We're going to get rid of my cool mod mixin under each of these and get rid of these files as well. All right, so we were able to load into the game and we have the Architectury API loaded with us. Now let's register our blocks and items in common since we have Architectury available to do that for us. Create a new package registry. I'm going to do mod blocks, and this is going to feel very similar to Forge again. I'm going to do a public static final deferred register, which is coming from Architectury. We're going to be registering instances of block from Minecraft. So blocks. Do deferred register dot create. We'll do our mod ID first, and then registries, and then registries from Minecraft dot block. Open this up a bit. This might seem a little odd. We also have a registrar, which is separate from a register. So we're going to do public static final registrar from Architectury of block registrar is equal to blocks.getRegistrar. Instead of registry objects or deferred holders, we now have registry suppliers from Architectury. So we'll do public static final registry supplier of type block. This will be my cool block. And we have this equal to block registrar register. We'll create a new resource location from namespace and path of our constants, mod ID, and this is going to be my cool block. And we're going to supply a new my cool block. And we just need a method to load this class as well. And in our entry point, we're going to do mod blocks.register. We'll also do our mod items. We're going to copy some of this over. All this items and item registrar. This would be items. This is item. This is also, these are both also item. We'll go ahead and create our public static void register, registry supplier item. This is also my cool block because it's the block item. This would be item registrar dot register. And let's see, can we do mod blocks dot my cool block dot get ID? There we go, that's cool. Do new block item. Mod blocks my cool block dot get, and then block, and then new item dot properties. We forgot to make this a supplier. All right, and we need to make sure to call this in our common mod initializer. We'll do mod items dot register. Now let's try to run the game. We get warnings about no block state and no item model. So that's actually a good thing because that means our block and our item are both registered. So creative, peaceful, super flat should be able to do /give at p my cool mod, my cool block. It's a block item that places a block into the world. And that's been your demonstration of a Botania-like setup using RegistrationUtils as well, using Bookshelf as well, and using Architectury. All right. I didn't do the creative tab for you. Let's go over that real quick. All right, we are back to a Botania-like setup for this portion of the tutorial, so I can just show you how to register creative mode tabs. So what we're going to do, create a new class, mod tabs, and let me tell you, creative mode tabs are a little finicky, so we're going to use a service loader. And I might have mentioned it before, you should look into service loaders. This is something provided by Java itself. If you don't understand it, go read up on your documentation. It's pretty straightforward actually. You have a service configuration file in the loader specific project or subproject that is dependent on the common source. And then that basically loads the class for you, the implementation of that class. So we have an interface, and then the implementation of the interface is specific for each mod loader. So what we want to return is a creative mode tab dot builder. Oh my god, if I could type. What we want to return is a creative mode tab dot builder. Just going to call this tab builder. So we need an implementation of this in each of our mod loader platforms. Fabric, we'll do fabric item group dot builder. Yeah. Fabric item group dot builder. Forge, do new creative mode tab dot builder. Oh, sorry. What we'll return in Forge is creative mode tab dot builder. And I believe it should be the exact same for NeoForge. Should be all good. All right, so we have a platform helper that will help us create a creative mode tab builder. So now we can actually use that in our class here. do public static final creative mode tab is equal to, ooh, yeah, actually, services, which is in our common, services dot platform, which is the implementation of iPlatform helper. We'll do dot tab builder. And we can do dot build. And we'll add on to this as we're going. So this would be a blank tab with no icon, no title, no nothing. So it actually wouldn't display just yet. What we need to do is dot icon, dot title, and then give it some items, display items. Supply a new item stack. We can do mod items, my cool block. Even though it doesn't have a texture, it'll just show the purple and black square. We're going to do a component.literal here. If you want to reference other tutorials, you can see how to make it translatable. That's not what we're doing right now. We're going to do constants.mod name this time. Display items. If we just start typing, we can get these. We'll get the parameters that we need to actually include. And what we'll do in here is output.accept. And you could actually do, we'll do output.accept. And you could do modblocks.mycoolblock because it is attached to a block item. It will understand that. And and blocks are actually instances of item-like as well. Or you could be more specific. If you had some kind of different block item, you can just reference the item reference of it. So since we're in the Botania-like setup, we need to have a similar method signature to this. So I'm just going to copy this and modify it slightly. Instead of block, we're consuming creative mode tab. We'll do consumer.accept our tab, and then create a new resource location for it. And then for our mod loader entry points, we need to make sure that we're adding it. So you can see how this Botania-like setup has a small disadvantage in that we're having to make sure we add this to each entry point. But I do heavily prefer not having any extra dependencies. We're just relying on Minecraft's actual code. We should be able to give ourselves, oh, I'm sorry. And we should be able to open the creative menu, go over. It's, if you want to move around a bit and get rid of that, you'll see the arrows right there. So annoying. All right, click over, and we see MyCoolMod, which is the display name of our mod, and the icon of our block, which has no texture. And we can get it and use it. Pretty straightforward. So thanks for watching. We might expand on this tutorial series. This is just this was just meant to be a very straightforward introduction. If you want to see something specific, if you get confused on, I don't know, registering entity types, it's literally the exact same thing. Just make sure you understand Java generics. Add a comment. I might make a video on it. You know, just let me know. Yeah, like, subscribe, whatever. I'm not a YouTuber, man.